Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. It is Wednesday. It is January the 21st. I am coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada, in a strange room with blue lights behind me. If you are just listening, you have no idea. My voice is a little bit reedy because I spent the entire day yesterday doing exactly what people do at SHOT Show. If you were wondering, if you always thought it might be fun to go and do the annual conference where we talk about guns and see what's coming out and gear and so on and so forth, let me just tell you, it's mostly walking thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of steps. I think I was at 16 or 17,000 steps by the end of the day. And then talking to people in places where it is too loud to hear what they're saying. So you're just screaming all the time. So that was day one for me, and we've got a couple more days of this. So hopefully my voice will hold through the week. Made some really great contacts. Got an opportunity to talk to some law enforcement officers. Got an opportunity to talk to gun people who are not the same as politics people, although many of them do care about politics. And I'm not the only one out there who thinks that nothing is going to happen. If you're in the category that is being cast as being a black pillar or someone that is not supportive of the agenda of this particular administration, you are not alone. There are many people who brought things up, found out who I was, my background, and then they're always asking the exact same question. What the hell happened? How did we end up so disappointed with some of these people? And why are they behaving in the way that they do? How did we lose out on this opportunity? I thought Dan Bongino was going to come in and solve some problems. And the answer is yeah, that would have been great. I'm not the only one. You're not the only one. The people at SHOT Show in Las Vegas who care about guns, gear, running businesses, manufacturing, all kinds of interesting things. There's lots of cool people here doing really neat things that are uniquely American. You know, like trying to figure out what sort of materials can I combine and print that float in a 3D space but cannot be cast, dyed, or molded. And can we make a stronger, faster, lighter, more heat-resistant suppressor so we can quiet down the thing that we like doing, which is firing rounds downrange? There are people doing those things, and they also want to know what the hell is going on with this government. How is it that the things that we thought we're going to get, and why did they not actually move forward? And beyond those people, we're starting to see some of the conservative pundits say the same things. So today's program is going to cover a couple things. The ongoing revolution, or whether or not there is in fact a revolution, which I don't think there is. The question of what does our executive even have the power to do, even though we have this expectation. It seems like Democrats come in and solve an awful lot of problems very, very quickly. Why can we not do those things when, quote unquote, our people are in charge? I have a really dark thought about what that may be, to the fact that if you don't believe that our elections are legitimate, which a lot of people are starting to come into that sort of space, and I'm reluctantly getting there. I never could prove election fraud, but I never tried. It wasn't really my thing. I do know that our DOJ didn't do the investigations I hope they would do. And if they're not doing anything about it, and I'm pretty confident that both sides know what's going on, I think they kind of allow it. And if that's the case, I think that we are seeing an info narrative that is just being seeded so that all of us have this illusion that there is an election, the election takes place, and then we can look back and we can retroactively explain why one side won or the other. It doesn't mean they actually did, but you're seeing a sort of a cooperation between media, which tells you, look at all these things people are upset about, and look at how they're seeing the world, and look at these reactionaries and these revolutionaries, and look at all the news coverage we gave them. So it must be very real. They're seeding information in your brain so that when something happens that is negative to what you would expect, or maybe more importantly, it's different than every single person that you know around you. You go, yeah, but I did see an awful lot of news coverage about it. I did see 50 people multiple times saying that this thing was happening. So maybe that's true. And I come to that conclusion, or I come to that sort of gentle hypothesis. And it's very uncomfortable to think about, talking to folks from Minnesota, one of our listeners, in fact, who told me he skips all of our commercials and bought me lunch as a thank you. So some of you guys are all off the hook because we got lunch yesterday from one of the listeners. But I think it comes down to this idea that he said he didn't know anybody who voted for Tim Walz. And maybe that's the circle he runs in. And maybe that's true. But it seems like you should at least know somebody that did this thing. And I had the same instinct when I talked to people in 2020 about Joe Biden, both in Virginia, in New Mexico. I knew plenty of people who really couldn't place, like, who are these voters and how did they turn out in such mass? And if that's the case, man, we are really in an ugly and dark spot. So that's where we're going to go today, and we're going to actually lead off with one of the sponsor reads that we have. I'm going to be seeing these folks later on today, and they make a fantastic product. They do really fun stuff. I'm going to see Aaron, who is the sort of the mover and shaker in there, and it is the folks over at Silence. So you can find their website at slnt.com/KYLE. There will be a link in the description as usual. All day yesterday, for all 16,000 steps or whatever it was, I carried around my Silent everyday Faraday bag. It's the E3 backpack. I think they're maybe $250 or something like that with our discount. It's a really great bag. It carried everything I needed, including clothes for weather changes, all the equipment that I might need for a camera. Just an outstanding and comfortable piece of equipment. And then I was telling people about it, and they're like, oh, the clasp, the way that it actually fits, the way that it actually holds, the little case in the back here for your passport. It's very well thought out. So if you guys are looking for a great product, check these out. Everything they're doing is neat, and we'll see what they've got coming up for this year at the booth later on today. Your phone is a tracking device. All of the corporate and the big tech and the government agencies are looking for a piece of whatever it is that you're putting out in the world in your digital footprint. I'm sure I left a bunch of digital footprints yesterday because my phone was actually constantly pinging against Wi-Fi and punching out cellular and Bluetooth and GPS and RFID and all those other things because I did not have it in the actual Faraday sleeve because I was making contact all day. When you can, you may want to go ahead and get off grid, and you can do so with Silent. It's the same stuff I used when I was in the FBI. It's the same stuff that special operations guys are using all over the place to be able to secure their comms, avoid surveillance, and more importantly, just get some peace and quiet when you need it. You can tuck it in when you go to sleep. You can tuck it in when you're doing a podcast. You can tuck it in when you're trying to have dinner with your family and just not have somebody have access to you. Check them out at SLNT. That's Silent with no vowels. slnt.com/KYLE. The Silent Faraday sleeve. Jump off the grid. Get silent. Get invisible to the outside world. Take a little breath from this modern sort of frustrations. Kind of like we do with our palate cleanses at the end of most of our shows. So check them out. I'm really appreciative of them, and I'll give you guys some more info on what we got going on there. Let's do today's program. So it's a dark idea to think that we may not have any say in this. And I think that's actually a real possibility. It's actually also empowering. If you give up on the idea that midterms are coming, which is kind of like that thing that you hear, what do they used to say? Winter is coming when you were watching now I can't even think of the damn program. This tells you about 4 hours of sleep. Not fantastic. The threat that something is imminent and coming your way. One of you will put it in the chat, and I'll have to remember when I see it afterwards. The threat that it's coming your way, and therefore you must act accordingly in the way that we would like. Never mind the fact that you haven't seen the reactions that you were hoping for. Never mind that you didn't get the results that you were promised. The worst case scenario is that it could come your way, and if it does, it's all basically over. Should we live in a way that that's the case? I saw this clip, and I wasn't even sure I was going to play it, so now I'm going to have to go grab it for you guys. This is Wesley Hunt. He's talking about the filibuster, and he's also sort of verbalizing the concept of imminence. And the alternative would be worse. You didn't get what you wanted, but that's not important because you could get the worst thing that's out there. And the worst thing is a moderate Democrat who's actually not moderate at all. We're going to talk about that in just a second because there's an entire suite of gun legislation and a bunch of tyrannical stuff that's happening in Virginia. We'll probably end up having Steven Stambolia on. If you guys have not seen him, he's the machine gun lawyer. He's been on our program a number of times. He's my personal friend. He's running around at SHOT Show, so I got to sit and talk to him yesterday. And he's got a really decent video out on YouTube. For those of you listening on YouTube, you can check it out over there. Check out Stambo's podcast discussing the suite of tyrannical, quote-unquote, moderate common sense gun control things that are coming down in Virginia. And Virginia's going to take a radical swing. Everybody who thought, well, we've ended them, we got Glenn Youngkin, it's all over because now the regular people are in charge and parents spoke out. You're always one step away from having some lady who's from the CIA take over your state government. Put in Stanley Meador, who's the former FBI agent who was in charge of the Richmond field office that approved the investigations of radical traditionalist Catholics and that sort of like what they called RTC memo and or intel product, which was allowing investigations for people doing First Amendment things. And here's the broader supposition. All these people in government, they didn't go away. And it's in state governments where you think you got to change and suddenly, oh, we got the right governor, so now everything's going to work. It's in the federal government in a big, deep way. And that's why we're seeing the inaction we do. None of these people changed the thoughts that they had. None of them thought, well, you know what, shoot, I was wrong. And now that this new person is in, there's a quote unquote sweeping mandate. And so I'm going to change my opinions. I'm going to change my actions. And I'm going to now work with this new group to be able to do the exact opposite of what I was doing that I felt totally justified doing previously. Yeah, now I'm on this new team. They just sit and wait dormantly. And I think I've made this position to you guys before. I talked to Aaron Stevenson. He's a bit of a black pill himself. And one of the things that he always points out is this Machiavellian concept. This is not new. This goes back hundreds of years of looking at what is it that you do in a Western civilization as you try to rule a population with a governmental change. The only way reform happens is with new people. That's a nice way of saying it. The way Machiavelli would have thought about it was, you can either eliminate these people through exile, you take them and you make them leave your country. In this case, we'd probably talk about figuratively, or you execute them. And in this case, probably also figuratively. So either you drive them from the state or drive them from your country, or you have to make sure that they don't have the positions that they previously had. And if you're going to try to quote unquote do reform with the same people, you're going to get the same very, very disappointing results. That's my personal opinion. But just because you had those results doesn't mean you shouldn't keep voting the way that we ask. Please continue to give to our campaigns. It's so critical. Here's Wesley Hunt talking about that as he runs for office in Texas.
Well, why not? Because we absolutely have to. Again, President Trump was given a mandate, and the people that are holding up his agenda are other Republicans. We have already what we're talking about. Just like I said, he won the popular vote and the Electoral College. He was given a mandate by the American people, won every single swing state. And so bookmark this conversation. When the Democrats get back in charge, and that someday that will happen, and I hope I'm old as John Cornyn when that happens. But at some point, it is absolutely going to happen. When they get a 2 or 3 seat majority, they are absolutely going to nuke the filibuster, and they are going to ramrod their agenda right through the American people. I guarantee.
Oh, fantastic. So you hope to be as old as John Cornyn, who's 1,000 years old. You hope that you can be that old, but there's going to be no filibuster, so we better do it now. We better do the thing that we hope the other people won't do, because if we don't, this is the classic sort of mutually assured destruction, or we better do it first, fire the first shot. For what? For what change? What sort of solution are we proposing? Nothing. We just want to make sure that the other guys aren't in power, because the alternative could be so much worse than what we're doing, than nothing that we've unleashed. And, the other side is doing their own version of the fear-mongering. So I had this on the screen. This is from CBS News. This is worth chatting about just a little bit. Off-duty Twin Cities police officers are, quote-unquote, targeted by ICE. So you're seeing people on the left that are also out there suggesting, hey, it's really, really bad out there. Look what happens when the bad guys get in charge. When Republicans are in charge, this is what they do. And so they are now getting together and talking about how federal agents are not just targeting the poor people that work there or live there in the cities. They are actually even going after other law enforcement. Speaking of law enforcement, very interesting law enforcement conversation I had with one of the police officers who lives local to me outside of the Austin, Texas area. And he said, I remember the previous administration. I remember what the Biden administration did, and I used to work in some other places. Why are there no consent decrees? Do you remember how that used to happen? There was a Biden administration that came in. They didn't like what certain police officers or police agencies were doing, whether it be a sheriff's department, whether it be a local police department in a city, big or small. And if they didn't like it, they would put in force these aggressive consent decrees, and they would threaten the existence of whether those people could continue to do business the way they were doing. Where are those things? Why are they not happening under the Pam Bondi, the new DOJ, the quote-unquote our DOJ? Instead, what we've got is sort of this justice is coming message, this drumbeat from the people on the conservative incorporated side. This is the Bannons, this is the Mike Davis, this is the Sean Davis who comes in, and they're all saying sort of these weak, limp-wristed things like, these are our people, we trust them, but they really better do their job soon. What about using the powers that actually exist within these agencies to come out there and force it? The things that we found kind of tyrannical previously. Got a big problem with this. And so you're getting the reverse messaging that's happening on the left. This is, I've got a video of the police chief. His name is Mark Bruley. He was speaking, I guess, yesterday about this, talking about how police officers are even experiencing tyranny. Well, you know what they're not doing? They're not providing for public safety by stepping into the space and stopping the public from getting involved in federal enforcement operations. Nobody has to show you what the federal government is necessarily doing when it comes to rounding up people and why. Either they're doing so justifiably or they're not. But it turns out it's not really a state issue. What is a state issue is whether or not the citizens living in the area, the people who are citizens of Minnesota or citizens of Texas or wherever they're the citizen of, they should be kept from driving into the middle of an active, ongoing federal investigation or an ongoing federal operation. This is the thing I was saying. You don't even have to agree with what they're doing. In fact, you can disagree with what they're doing and still want to keep people safe so they don't accidentally end up on the wrong side of that federal use of force policy that we've talked about here for quite a bit. The federal use of force policy is hyper aggressive on purpose. The people that are encountered in federal operations are not accidental. Although there may be some accidentals when they start running into police officers and checking papers. Now listen, if you can't get cooperation from the locals, if you can't get cooperation from the people around you, that should just be trying to keep people safe in the community and everybody is a potential target, and then you end up with stuff like this, which actually does play nicely into the leftist narrative where they're saying, listen, we need to take back control from the federal government. They're really the bad guys here. And that's why you're starting to see Democrats introduce legislation to actually defund or whatever it is, ICE. At least they're actually talking to where the problem is. These guys don't have a lot of self-reflection, recognizing that they are in fact part of the problem as local police chiefs, but here they are talking about it in a press conference and complaining about the interference with their citizen police officers who may have darker skin, which, that does play to the narrative, and it is kind of a gripe.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Bruley, Police Chief of the City of Brooklyn Park. Behind me is a bunch of amazing police chiefs that are here in support of a very short but very important message that we want to share with you. What you won't hear from any of us today is rhetoric of abolish immigration enforcement. The truth is, immigration enforcement is necessary for our national security and for local security. But how it's done is extremely important. In fact, we have a long history of working exceptionally well with our federal partners, including ICE agents, and we have seen the best of them perform their job extremely well in the past. With that said, recently, as the last 2 weeks, we, as law enforcement community, have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. What we're hearing is they're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally. As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them. In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, preventing her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction, and after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down. The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left. I wish I could tell you
that actually is a problem. As I said the other day, isn't it interesting? We're actually looking at the radicalization of the left towards the sovereign citizen end of things. And that may be the funniest thing that could happen in 2026. If we start seeing people on the hard left, people that would not agree with us on things like civil liberties and freedom of movement and travel and all the other kind of things, and the ability to defend yourself. And wouldn't it be interesting if those people ended up like the most aggressive sovereign citizens? Like, some of them are already kind of obnoxious. If they actually ended up saying the things that I would say kind of the hard right, the kind of fringe right people are saying, that may be one of the funniest things. And again, it kind of goes to my theory that I don't think that politics is a spectrum from left to right. I actually think it's more of a circle. And at the bottom, you have anarchy, and at the top, you have tyranny, and somewhere in between is where we want to live, on one side or the other. The issue is both sides kind of get in, and then they kind of push the envelope to that. So we end up on either the top or the bottom, or they're at tyranny or anarchy. And neither of those pretty much work. He just said that they don't want to abolish ICE. They don't want to go out there and cripple the immigration enforcement or the authorities to do that. And yet you have Democratic lawmakers from the same kind of places. This is not Minneapolis. This is someone coming in from Illinois proposing legislation that a lot of people are starting to back. And they want to go ahead and cripple DHS, and they want to stop their ability to detain immigrants. And I don't understand why. I really don't, because it seems like they don't understand the second order effects of this. And some of the issues they have are all about cost, housing. It's all demand driven because we have a finite supply and we seem to have an infinite number of people coming in. This is a representative named Delia Ramirez. She wants to introduce a bill which came out, I guess, this morning, saying they want to pull funding from the Department of Homeland Security and the ability to detain and monitor immigrants, even as she admits the bill won't advance unless Democrats can take control of the House. And so then you get your classic, stupid, frustrating fear-mongering. Then nothing is going to happen, but if it were to happen, you guys can imagine how bad it would be. And so therefore we must fundraise and we must try to drive these people out. We must kind of hold the specter of danger over their head. Tyranny could come at any moment, even though we don't have the ability to do it. It's a virtue signal. It tells people where she stands. And Americans just play right into it. And so you get people getting aggressive. You get people sort of recognizing that, yes, theoretically, elections have consequences, but that's assuming that we actually even have something called an election that actually does anything at all. We had a massive transition happen in another state. This was one that people thought was going to be a comfortable red. It's Virginia. I knew that it wasn't because I lived there, and I saw how people are willing to tolerate all kinds of tyranny. It's one of the scariest things I've ever seen. I lived in Virginia. We were actually reliving this last night, talking to some folks. And so many people in this country, especially people that are liberty-minded, that are kind of like leave me alone, sort of Christian and libertarian, or just libertarian in general, or if you guys want to get more broadly, the bacon cheeseburger nationalist position. If you're a person that's not afraid of eating meat, you don't mind eating pork, you don't have a problem with dairy, although I've had a lot of people push back and say, hey, cheese really bothers me, or I have a gluten allergy. I'm like, that's fine. But you're not offended that somebody else would eat it. This is the big thing. The bacon cheeseburger nationalist position doesn't mean you have to consume the thing with me. It just means that if somebody were to offer you, that's not offensive. And everybody that would fit in this camp, and everybody that is adjacent to this camp that needs some sort of diet modification along with it, we all saw this aggressive tyranny take place. I was reliving the fact that I watched the stores shut down. I watched government lose its ever-loving mind, and state governments and local governments, the ones closest to us, kowtow to some federal nonsense and close grocery stores, close roads, put up signs that look like the zombie apocalypse. And then, unlike a lot of you, I was traveling all over the place. The funny joke was with a couple of us, because people who travel all the time for work, one, it tends not to be very fun, but two, you have a different experience of the country. And when COVID started rolling out from the right all the way to the East Coast, all the way across the left coast, because that's really what it went down to, is the way I saw it. I saw it shut down states as I was in there more than once. It spread out of D.C. like a cancer, and by the time I got a little further south, it wasn't there, and then it rolled across us like a wave. I went back up to D.C., it was already there. I flew out to the west. I was out in the desert in Albuquerque, and it rolled across the towns then. It had already hit where I was, and then it hit me again. And I got to see it over and over again. And so it wasn't a unique experience for me. Oh, I just saw this town shut down. I saw everybody shut down. To think that that wouldn't be the case in many of these states, or that it wouldn't just happen and people wouldn't just roll over and let it happen, that thing is really wild to me. Here's Bret Baier acting like the thing that we always knew would happen, which is that the same people were in place. You didn't get rid of any of them. There was no exile and no execution. And so we experienced, just sleepers hanging out. The system is what it does. What it did is it just took a little hiatus while certain people were in charge. And my guess is that's what we're watching happen under the Trump administration. It's not that government is inherently Democrat or Republican one way or another. The agenda of government is to grow government, to grow authority, to do all of its things. And if you're going to say, well, we don't really want that, we'd like to do something else, they say, okay, fine, we'll just do nothing while you're here. And then when you leave, we'll go back to doing the work. Here's what happened in Virginia when that happened.
That's the new governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, ran for that office as a moderate. But the executive order that she talked about is state and local police not cooperating with ICE to get criminal illegal immigrants. There's also a list of, now the Democrats control the legislature, that a number of bills that have been put forward. You can't read it here, but let me just go through it. Sales tax on Uber Eats, Amazon. Sales tax on admissions to a variety of businesses. Create 2 new higher tax brackets. 10% tax bracket for anyone making over $1 million. 3.8 investment tax. Raise the hotel tax. New personal property tax on landscaping equipment. Ban gas-powered leaf blowers. Guarantee illegal aliens free education. Make it illegal to approach somebody at an abortion clinic. Extend the time absentee ballots can be received after Election Day. Allow people to cast their votes electronically through the internet. Expand ranked choice voting. Extend the deadline for ballot curing. Redact the addresses of political candidates from FOIAs. Add Virginia to the National Popular Vote Compact. Make it illegal to hand count ballots. $500 sales tax on firearm suppressors. Assault weapons and large capacity magazine ban. 11% sales tax on all firearms and ammunition. Prohibit outdoor shooting of a firearm less than 5 acres. Lower the criminal penalties for robbery. Ban the arrest of illegal aliens in courthouses. Remove mandatory minimum sentences. Allow localities to install speed cameras. And replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day.
Wow.
So elections have consequences, Josh.
Yeah, elections have consequences, or they don't, because this was always just coming and we just had like a little bit of a slowdown. Remember, my concern with this administration and the federal end of it is always that I don't think Donald Trump has hit the brakes on anything. There are very few things we've seen a break, and more importantly, what we needed was a U-turn. What we see is, generally speaking, a foot off the gas. We kind of coast for a little bit. We move down the line, and then what? Well, then one of these people gets back in and they put their foot back on the accelerator, and you go back to doing the wild things like $500 tax stamps, 11% taxes on guns. That's uniquely interesting to me at the moment, where I'm at and what we're doing here. I'm walking around through convention centers that are, thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands of square feet of people that are selling guns. It's a very American thing to design and to sell them and to want to use them and carry them and all the other things that go along with it and all the equipment that happens. If it's only allowed to be in the hands of law enforcement officers, there's nothing scarier, because you'll go exactly to that tyranny. And again, this goes to that tacit promise we got. There were a lot of them from this administration on the federal end before they got into power. You can't hold midterms over me like I somehow care when you haven't gotten the things done that you were meant to do. One of the things they were meant to do was hand out the Epstein files. It was over and over on the campaign trail, and it may not have been Donald Trump's statement, but it was surrogates for Donald Trump regularly bringing it up, saying, hey, yeah, we're going to go ahead and look into those. We had J.D. Vance, the vice president. We had the son, Don Jr., and various other people pointing out, like, yeah, we need to find out what's going on. It was a punchline. It was an attention grabber that they did. Well, where are those things? And then how about the really big thing? Because I remember, and if you were going to ask me what would be the most exciting thing, other than my friend Steve Baker not going to prison and the J6ers getting the pardon they got, which we did get. So again, I know I'm being greedy. The biggest single thing that I hope to get out of this was some step towards what Donald Trump claimed, the abolishment of the IRS. Whenever I talk to anybody about the issues in this country, the biggest single issue, and it doesn't matter how far back in this podcast you go, we're in our third full year. Is that right? No, 23, 24, 25. Okay, so this is our fourth full year. We did full 3 years on this. And even in the earliest podcast, the supposition that I had is that America needs this 10th Amendment revolution, where the focus goes from federal to state. And we should be having 50 independent podcasts talking about what's the most important thing happening in your state, to the point where we know that's going to be the predominant government that touches you as a citizen. Wouldn't that be nice? The only way that happens is this promise Donald Trump made, which was that he wanted to get rid of the IRS and he wanted to fund America by tariffs. That sounds fantastic. But not because of the tariffs thing per se, even though it's kind of like this sort of consumption tax. The reason it's a fantastic idea is because there's no way you could fund the entirety of the federal government as it currently exists under a tariff structure. And I thought everybody kind of was on board with that. I mean, I thought MAGA voters were on board with that. I thought independents like me who were coming in and saying, yeah, I'm not a MAGA guy. I don't own the red hat, but this is a great idea. It means you're going to have to shut down huge swaths, maybe 50, 70, 90% of what currently exists in our government cannot be funded on all tariff. And I know he wouldn't get it done, but I was hoping there'd be some steps towards it. And they would have had to have been aggressive and early. And it can't be midterms are coming, so you just have to vote for us because in the second 2 years, we're going to get it done right. We've already blown 50% of the most important part of this term. And what do we get out of it? And what are people frustrated about? Well, they're frustrated about it's not showing up. Right now, we're getting more theater. We're getting more hearings. We've got the House Oversight Committee voting on the Clintons being in contempt of the Epstein probe. Meanwhile, the federal government is in default and actually now 32 days late on delivering what they are required to do under federal law. Does that not blow anybody's mind other than me? I mean, how is it? We're going to go and vote whether or not a former president and the former Secretary of State, who hope to be president, these two people, this DC Democrat power couple, yeah, they can defy a congressional subpoena. And then guess what? Nothing. Freaking nothing. We're going to have a decision in the Oversight Committee on whether they're going to hold them in contempt, and then it'll move forward. And then we'll see if something happens. That's scheduled to happen at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So probably about the time you guys are listening, especially if you're in the replay, then that's what's happening. While I'm talking about it, let me do a little quick self-promo here. Folks, if you're listening on any audio platform that is not Spotify, what you are getting is a little bit less than what you could get because there's also video, even though the video is a little bit weird where I am. KyleSeraphinShow.com is where you find it. If you guys want to support us on locals, obviously we won't have a call-in show this weekend, but normally you can call in and you can tell me the things that you were thinking about and what it meant to you. And I appreciate that. That's how I kind of keep a gauge on what's going on. Regardless of where you're watching, whether it be on Rumble or whether it be on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new and you haven't done that before. Make sure you like these videos. I didn't check yesterday's. Yesterday was a disaster area for a lot of reasons, and I don't like showing up late. But make sure you guys are liking these videos if the things are interesting, and then share it with a friend. I'd appreciate that. I've got a bit of a palate cleanse today that I couldn't get done yesterday while I was trying to do it on almost no sleep. In this, like, the only hotel room in America, for whatever it's worth, the only one that I've been able to find that has no Wi-Fi signal and almost no cell phone signal. Like, my text messages take a while. In 2026 America in Las Vegas, that's actually fairly shocking. All right, also shocking. They want us to believe that they're going to hold the Clintons accountable based on what? Like no evidence that's ever happened before? I did hear some funny stories from folks that had been in and around the Clinton orbit years ago in government, because there's always a mixed bag of interesting folks at these conventions. Anyway, the House Oversight Committee is set to vote on Wednesday, that's today, holding former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in criminal contempt because they refused to appear before the Republican-led panel, which is investigating the Justice Department's handling of the Epstein investigation, which they also are not worried about the federal government now being, like I said, delinquent well over a month, and nobody seems to be worrying about it. The only person who seems to actually care about that is this guy named Tom Massie. And it shouldn't be just Tom Massie, but it always seems to be just Tom Massie. So let's do a quick little clip here, because there's a bunch of other things that are also constitutionally problematic, let's call it, at the very least. If you are not following federal law, and then maybe you say, I don't know, keep a bunch of oil tankers and money and you put it in places that you have access to and no one else does, we're seeing this system do what it is. It's sort of this kleptocracy at this point. It's sort of this illusion, this veneer of constitutionality. But how many times have you heard that things are unconstitutional? And then what's the recourse? There's almost none. What are you going to do, vote your way out of this at this point? And I'm not trying to be sour, but at the end of the day, I have zero faith that that's going to happen. Either the status quo is too strong because the Republican machine and the Democrat machine are too strong, or more likely, I think, unfortunately, we've moved to this place where when we vote, all they're doing is giving cover for action. They're doing what you do in the intelligence community, where you drop into various places. And so when someone says, well, did he do a dead drop or meet up with someone? And you say, no, he did a bunch of legitimate cover actions that explains what I saw, even if he already managed to hand off the thing. So for example, I have a micro disc or I have an SD card and I want to leave it for somebody. So I go to various places and I go to one of the booths at SHOT Show here. And then I go and I get a hamburger later. And then I go and I look in some new shoes because my feet are hurting. And then I go back to the hotel and I grab some dinner there, and then I head back up to my room. And let's say while I was at the shoe store, while I'm checking them out, I leave a little SD card in one of the shoes on some pair or some size, and I have it put back in. And then, my buddy comes in 10 minutes later and asks for those same shoes to try on, gets them out. Oh, we just had a guy in there earlier. He takes the little SD card. Now we've done a dead drop. But I had cover for action. It made sense what I was doing. As much as anything else, the outrage that we're seeing, what happens with activists, the idea that these LARPers are somehow causing a revolution, I'm not sure I believe any of it. I'm not sure that the elections have consequences. I think that basically they're trying to just explain the consequences that are predetermined. And again, it's not about the candidate individually, who very well may expect to win and be very frustrated. But at the end of the day, the same systems and parties are still in place. And so all of that leads me to this very problematic issue that how come nobody cares when it's unconstitutional? What recourse do we have? The joke that you can't vote your way out of it continues to be the actual thing. There's no evidence to me that that's happening. Here's Tom Massey using that word unconstitutional again, talking about issues. It starts off with Epstein and it goes to other stuff. And the answer is what are you going to do about it? Does anyone have an answer? And the answer so far that I can tell is no. We're just going to watch a bunch of a-holes with stupid beards that are a mess, that are basically filthy hippies, go run into churches, and then we're going to hear that justice is coming even though no one does anything.
Yeah, real quick, any update on the Epstein files?
Yeah, we responded to Judge Engelmeyer today with a letter, and that should be on the docket for you to see.
Okay, and your tweets obviously was super viral over the weekend about Greenland and so on, but did you hear from the White House at all about, or have you heard from the White House at all generally?
Well, first of all, what they're doing is not constitutional. They're trying to gaslight folks. They're saying, oh, this is Venezuela's money. Even though they've stolen the oil and they're selling it, they say they're caretaking Venezuela's money, so this isn't money that belongs in the U.S. Treasury and it's not money that Congress can appropriate. But the reality is the president, when he speaks as if he's going to spend this money any way he pleases, and that would be a violation of the Constitution and our power to appropriate all money from the Treasury.
What do you make of him banking that money in Qatar?
That's the whole point. The power of the purse is subjugated. And even worse, if there's an end around where the executive ends up taking money and putting it somewhere that it shouldn't be, and then has access to it in a way that didn't previously, like, what are we even doing? Today's thumbnail has Lindsay Halligan on there. She's leaving the Justice Department. A federal judge called her, quote unquote, leadership of it a charade. You'll remember that she was the one that was going to hold Jim Comey to account. The deep state arrest. We got John Bolton and his mustache, so I guess that's like 1 1/4. And we got Jim Comey. And maybe Letitia James. And Jim Comey got away with it. Jim Comey, who's a real villain in a lot of ways. He absolutely destroyed the agency that I used to work at. The funniest thing in the world is finding someone saying you're a stooge for Jim Comey. And it's like, I saw through James Comey's bullshit right away. I was there at the academy and he told a story, and my father loves telling this, but he told a story and I went, wow, that was a really good speech. And that was great. I mean, it hit on all the cylinders. It was well delivered and it was articulate and it was clever and it was funny and it was personable and it was very charismatic. Then I heard him give the same speech again. And I went, oh, this is like a thing that he talks about. And then I heard him give that speech again. And I went, oh, this is just canned bullshit that he just says. And he knows it hits. He's a great actor. And then I watched him do it again. And the fourth time was at my graduation when I got my credentials and my badge. And he stood up there and I used the joke that he's like a giant middle finger to America. The guy's like 7 feet tall. I'm 5'8". In some, decent height boots, I might be like close to 5'9", but the guy's got like almost, he's got a foot on me. And so he's a foot over me, he's a foot over my dad, my mom and my wife and my in-laws are all shorter. So we're all standing there and we're on either side of him. And I swear to God, he looks like this. He looks like a huge middle finger. Here, let's go to the main screen. He's a big middle finger standing up and everybody else is like a foot below him. And it was a perfect metaphor. I've got a picture of it at my house. They arrested him. And then what? Nothing. And then guess what? Well, the pretty lady that showed up, and as far as I can tell, got hired for looks. I don't mind people getting hired for looks, at least if they acknowledge it. She didn't do anything. And now she's gone. So she stole an opportunity from us. And to be fair, I don't think Donald Trump could get anybody approved. So then what do you do? If you're an executive who can't execute, but you're going to do things that are supposed to be in the legislative powers, we don't have a constitutional republic. Somebody was saying, I saw a post on X earlier. It said, whenever I hear the word democracy, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard. We're closer probably to a democracy than we are to anything else. It's closer to mob rule, but it's probably more closer to something even more nefarious and shady. It's the illusion of some democratic process, and it's not actually even happening. Let's read the story real quick here. Lindsay Halligan, President Trump's handpicked interim United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, EDVA, left her position at the Justice Department yesterday, making it an end to her turbulent tenure, bringing cases against the president's political enemies, and to what effect, I will add, which is not in the story. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced Halligan's exit on a post on X and said, "It is a significant loss for the department. No clear reason why." As we like to say, NFI in the intelligence world. No further information. Noting she'll continue to serve the country in other ways. Fantastic. We can look forward to that. The news of Halligan's departure came after a federal judge issued a withering ruling, calling her decision out in unusually sharp language earlier this month. And she pushed back against the judge questioning her authority, saying that it was unnecessary rhetoric and the level of vitriol was far more appropriate for cable news talk shows. That's actually probably the most accurate statement. We are now at a time when this is all about sound bites and nonsense. And so let's have a little bit of promise with no delivery. How about we all just agree that no one is above the law? I know you guys have probably never heard that before. You've probably never thought, you know what? I bet there's some people who are above the law. Didn't we just talk about Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton? And wouldn't everybody in this country on either side of the political aisle probably gently come down on the idea that, yeah, there's probably some people who are above the law, as evidenced by the fact that they're above the law, and whenever there's a law that they break, then there is no consequence? Those people, we're aware of them. We know some of their names. Some people can get a presidential pardon for all crimes that they may or may not have committed back to a date that is ridiculously far behind us. And they can't be touched. Isn't that being above the law? No. Prosecutions are coming. Justice is coming. Just stand by. You have no idea, ladies and gentlemen, the nothing that we are about to unleash at the Justice Department. And why is it? It may not even be because Pam Bondi doesn't want to accomplish something. I don't know. I won't even impugn her personal motives. I just know that the people that work for her are doing the thing that they were doing before. They're either actively accomplishing the agenda they wanted, or they're shutting up and kind of running quiet obstructionism until they go away and they can go back to doing the work that they wanted. But don't you fear. Here it comes. The justice thing.
Whether it's a public official, whether it's a law enforcement officer, no one is above the law in this state or in this country. And people will be held accountable. This state is a mess right now. We've seen the chaos, and it's constant. And our men and women in law enforcement deserve to be safe. And that's what we're going to do in Minnesota.
I don't even know who she's talking about, our men and women in law enforcement. I assume she's talking about FBI agents because she's not in charge of DHS, so I'm not sure how they're hers, but whatever. Okay, fine. So that's a hard promise. You know what I found? There's this little tell they all do. They all say the words, and I'm going to quote them to you, and when you hear it from here on out, you're going to be like, oh, crap. Now that I've heard it, I cannot unhear it. You're going to hear it all the time, and I don't think it's my first time observing this in the podcast. Let me be clear. I'll say it again. Let me be clear. When you hear those words, I would like you to prime your brain for the bullshit that is coming your way, which is what is coming your way right after that. Let me be clear is a note that I now have to sell you on something that I don't believe, you won't believe, and honestly, the people that we're talking about don't believe either. This is a wholesale lie that we're going to push out on top of you. Let me be clear is one of two things. Something that is obvious but not important, or something that is absolutely like aspirational and will never happen. And if only I had an example of someone who's going to let you be clear. I do have one actually for you. Enjoy this.
You have subpoenas out. It's not rocket science. Investigations are done by acquiring records. Investigations are then furthered by putting witnesses in the grand jury and making a presentment for a case, which our partners at the Department of Justice and the Attorney General will do in any case. But let's make one thing absolutely crystal clear. Under President Trump's leadership, he has supplied law enforcement the resources they need to protect our American communities. He has also given us the mandate to enforce the law. And the law is simply this. No one No one, elected official, private citizen, or otherwise, gets to impede and obstruct a law enforcement investigation. No one. And this FBI is committed to working with our interagency and our Department of Justice partners under President Trump's mandate to make sure Minnesota and every other city across this country is safe. And that's why we're having the record year that we're having under President Trump's brilliant leadership.
Brilliant leadership. What does Donald Trump even know about what's going on over at FBI? Does he have any clue how useless these people are? Does he have any clue that the base, the real base of people, the folks that don't want to get involved in politics, they just want to be able to run their manufacturing business and make suppressors, or they want to go out there and mill new guns, or they want to go out and sell night vision to people, or they want to go out and make some doodad or storage device. They want to be able to produce ammunition and ship it to a place and sell it to people without having to go through all kinds of federal hoops. Do any of these people, do you think that they're like, oh yeah, you know who's really kicking ass? Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, under the brilliant leadership of Donald Trump. Let me be clear. That guy just gave you he gave you all of the verbal pauses. Number one, he gave the knob slobbery. That's Kash Patel, for those of you who couldn't see and you don't know what he sounds like. The sniff should have given him away. I only caught one really good sniff in there, by the way. It's really straightforward. If you're going to give me a list of all the things, and you're not doing it in an explanatory way. He just talked about, we're going to bring witnesses, we're going to go to grand juries, we do this, we do that. He's saying them in a way that just is filibuster. There's a way that you might talk about it. I might explain to you the concept of how I would go about getting an indictment. If you are not familiar with it, allow me to give you the process. And here's what happens. We do the investigation. We go and we present it to the United States Attorney's Office. This is the federal side, obviously. You get a United States Attorney or Assistant United States Attorney to convene the grand jury. They call you in front of it. They open up a case with an argument. They bring you in as a witness. You quote all the evidence that you need to. They may bring in other witnesses. Then you all leave the room. And then the grand jury does a vote and they give you a true bill or not. I'm explaining you the process. That's a thing. That may be useful. That's not what Kash Patel did. I'm going to show it to you one more time. I want you to hear it, and then you listen. Not only does he do knob slobbery, President Trump's brilliant leadership, blah, 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 he says almost nothing. He showed up on Fox and got nothing. And the sad thing is, people are actually starting to pay attention and realize how frustrating this looks like.
You have subpoenas out. It's not rocket science. Investigations are done by acquiring records. Investigations are then furthered by putting witnesses in the grand jury and making a presentment for a case, which our partners at the Department of Justice and the Attorney General will do in any case. But let's make one thing absolutely crystal clear under President Trump's leadership.
Let's make one thing absolutely crystal clear. Are those actually happening? Okay, you've got subpoenas out. Great. And then what? They subpoenaed my records, people. I mean, as dumb as that was, as scary and dangerous as that was, I had my records subpoenaed. DOJ got mine. That doesn't mean that they were going to be able to do anything with it. They were trying to do it on charges that wouldn't even fly with anybody. There was no indictment. Just because you subpoena people doesn't mean that you're actually going to go out there and build a case that's going to result in prosecution. And now you're having a real problem. Because even the beta male, soft cheerleaders for the regime, this is our team and we're behind them and our guys, they're starting to recognize. Now, they're doing it in the most beta way possible. For whatever it's worth knowing that this is not strong. This is Sean Davis. He's the co-founder of the Federalists. I have a personal beef with him because I think he's weak. I think that he got over-celebrated. I think that he sold out. And I think that he supports Julie Kelly over people who are actually factually correct and know things about the systems we talk about. Instead, he'd rather go after a political power broker and Democrat donor and stand in that camp. In fact, when I shared with him, hey, did you know that this woman that you were having write for your organization was putting out significant amounts of money to Democrats while she was writing books about Donald Trump and moving into your MAGA movement and so on? And his answer was, if you're going to run little psyops about Julie Kelly, then just go ahead and unfollow me. It's like, no, I want to follow you. I want to know what kind of weak things you say. Notice he's very frustrated and he's trying to motivate Pam Bondi. He can't quite bring himself to say that these people aren't getting it done. But that is coming. That is coming from some people, and it's going to start coming in more frequently. This is him letting you know, do your job. Well, it's probably going to be too late by the time they actually even get around to doing it. But again, midterms are coming, so we better vote for the way we want, because it could be Abigail Spanberger at any moment.
Standing by and doing nothing and sending out tough talk and tough tweets and truth socials, I'm sick and tired of it, quite honestly. I want action. I want my country back. I want law and order. I want borders. I want evil, violent, left-wing terrorists in prison. And I think I have a pretty simple ask here. My baseline for what should happen to these people is what happened to people on J6. My baseline for what should happen to them is what happened to Douglas Mackey, who got put in prison for a meme, a jokey meme. My baseline is that I want whatever happened to Christian pastors who were silently praying outside abortion mills, who were swatted in the morning, who had pre-dawn raids by FBI, who were put in prison for silently praying. That is my baseline for what should happen to these people who go and use violence, who assault churches, who use terrorist activity to go and try to intimidate law enforcement, who attack our law enforcement, who attack Christians. Every last one of them should be in prison, and they should be in prison yesterday. So Pam Bondi, no more speeches, no more tweets, no more talk. Do your job.
Do you think that's going to work? Was that really tough? Are you intimidated with that that alto voice, lacking all bass and baritone? The testicular fortitude in that comment. He's correct, by the way. That is your yardstick. What did DOJ do when DOJ was so motivated to do it? They went after J6ers. They went after free speech. They did all the things that you would be very concerned about, like the legitimate aspects of tyranny. And there are two ways you can address it. You can do the U-turn, and you can start doing the same thing to the other side. Not a big fan of that, to be fair, because it always ends up, the gun just gets passed back and forth, and then the only people who get shot are regular people who otherwise don't want to be really messed with. So that's not great. You could use the gun passing back and forth method. At least you're getting action happen. Or you could dismantle it. That'd be good. Mass terminations, exile or execution, Machiavelli style. I'm okay with that. Let people understand you're not going to be using this tool against us again. So if you want to do it, you got to do something else. Or you could do nothing. And that's what we keep seeing. The frustration that I'm seeing on the trade show floor, walking around, and there are literally, there's tens of thousands of people. I don't know if it's 100,000 plus, but there are a lot of people walking around in Las Vegas right now. And they all, generally speaking, different politics, but they're all business people. They're all here to make a buck. They're all involved in an industry that kind of hinges on American liberty functioning. You get kind of the impression as you walk around these folks that they'd be fine with a dismantlement. And almost all of them ask, like, what happened to these people? The frustration that you're going to find with people like Dan Bongino going back to a podcast, with Lindsay Halligan leaving the administration, with Pam Bondi leaving whenever she does. You stole a generational opportunity. Wesley Hunt just told you that the Donald Trump had a mandate, a seven-state swing state win that was mandating action. And the answer is we have to get rid of the filibuster because you guys have a broken Senate and nobody's out there trying to fix the Senate. You want to fix the Senate? Get rid of the direct election of senators. Go back and fix the Constitution. Propose it so that we can have a functional system so that when Democrats are in the mass majority, which they will be at some point, maybe in the future, yeah, let's do that. No. We don't want to ever address root causes. We don't ever want to talk about the disease. We're only interested in symptoms. And can we just distract you with enough symptoms? Can we just put a cold compress on the fever rather than treat the infection? Every time. Always. And some people get a little bit motivated by that. It gets them going. They like to be on the bad end of it because it gives them political power. And again, it gives the narrative that a lot of people are standing up. Here's some tough speeches from a guy who looks suspiciously like Marilyn Manson. His eyes have a familiarity. The beard is probably not helping him. He's Marilyn Manson in a beanie. He was referred to as the Minnesota Manson. This guy's name is William Kelly. As far as I can tell, he's not a farmer or anything else. It seems like he's an activist out of D.C., but more on that at another time. Here he is letting you know that you can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution. What effing revolution are we having? I mean, honestly, what are we having? What we're having is the revolutionary idea that everyone is realizing that elections don't have consequences. Elections actually have no consequences. The status quo continues undefeated in this country. And the frustration is that everyone thought they might be getting this generational opportunity for change, and it's being squandered. And the few people that are actually doing the job that is meant to be done at a lower level than it needs to be, which is going to be ICE and the deportations, because that has to happen. That has to happen for the supply and demand curve to equalize in this country. Those people have been demonized. And where's the rest of it? The prosecutions? Not there. The de-weaponization and dismantlement? Not there. The knob slobbery and the brilliant leadership of Donald Trump? That's there. This is their version of that.
I mean, what we're seeing around this country is they're using their political influence to attack people that disagree with them. They're going to come at me with charges, and I'm not scared of that. There's no base for these charges. I did not block them from, their service. They welcomed us in. They never asked us to leave. The police never came in and removed us. So we didn't stop their service. In fact, people were still praying the entire time. The music was still playing the entire time. So, Pam Bondi, you want to come and arrest me? You want to come and give me charges? So be it. And for all the people giving me death threats, threatening my life, kill me. Go ahead, kill me. Because you know what? As Fred Hampton said, you can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution.
Epic. Way to go, man. You're killing it. You're crushing it. We didn't block the service. Remember, I told you this is a clear violation of the FACE Act. All you have to do is impede, interfere with, threat of violence. There's a whole sort of list in the federal statute. It's not actually questionable. We know that there is an ability to act when DOJ is so inclined. They grabbed a guy for a meme like Douglas Mackey, as pointed out. They grabbed people within the first weeks after January 6th. They got it really, really quick. This guy's not an unknown quantity. Here he is not blocking the church service, as he said.
They're going to come at me with charges, and I'm not scared of that. There's no base for these charges. I did not block them from, their service. All these comfortable white people who are living lavish, comfortable lives while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're living real life, nice lives with your lattes, doing absolutely nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers and sisters. You come here to a man wearing a suit. Is a preacher? Did Jesus wear a suit? They welcomed us in. They never asked us to leave. The police never came in and removed us. So we didn't stop their service. Jesus would dine with immigrants. Do not touch me. Touch me again and see what happens. Hey, you can't. You are a fake Christian. Why are you not standing with your Somali and Latino communities? Why do I not see you out at Whipple every day protesting this attack on humanity? Out now. Living real comfortable while the people starve.
Okay, yeah, so that's pretty cut and dry. It's your own video. It's your own live stream. Everybody can look at it and see that you violated federal law. So then what? Talk tough. Make a martyr out of him. He's doing great messaging, by the way. It's really bright. Because if they go get him and they do something, now you have a martyr for the cause. And if they don't, which is what everyone expects, then nothing happened, which is the status quo, and it continues. If you're not going to use the power, and I'm not crazy about you using it, can you please just dismantle the damn thing so it doesn't come after us next? Because we know that it will. When given an opportunity, Democrats don't seem to miss, because that's what the system wants to do. The system wants to do control. The system is interested in shutting down thought and things like this. So enjoy this little sort of taste. This is a Miami cop giving you the local version of it when we start policing free speech in this country, because, yeah, we can. Why not? Don't worry about the First Amendment. That's just like an idea. By the way, ABCD, always be closing the door. It works for the FBI. It works for federal agents. It also works for local cops. Please, people, why are you answering anything? Just thank you for your time. Please contact me through my lawyer. Feel free to leave a card. That's it. Am I free to go? Am I being detained? The left and the right can both end up on the sovereign citizen end. I have no idea what this lady's politics are, but she seems to be a little bit frustrated with Israel.
Picture to make sure it's you. We're not sure.
Okay.
Is that your account?
I refuse to answer questions without my lawyer present. So I really don't know how to answer that question either
well,
way.
Like I said, you're not going to jail.
This is freedom of speech. This is America, right? Veteran.
All right. And I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
We're just trying to see if it's you, because if we're not talking to the right person, we want to go see who the right person is.
Okay, how can I help you?
So pretty much it's just a statement that was made as far as,
verbatim, it says the guy who consistently calls for the death of all Palestinians tried to shut down a theater for showing a movie that hurt his feelings and refuses to stand up for the LGBTQ community in any way. Even leaves the room when they vote and on related matters. Wants you to know that you're all welcome. Clown face, clown face, clown face. 3 days ago.
So you don't know if it was you?
I'm not going to answer whether that's me or not.
Okay.
The concerning part, and not concerning for the person who's posting it, well, we're just trying to...
The concerning part is that you're a police officer, and just like things happened under COVID, and just like things happened when people were doing anything else tyrannical, you decided to go knock on the door of a lady and ask her questions about a freaking tweet, which is not even a threat. It's not even using hyperbolic language. It's not dangerous in any way, shape, or form. You're going to police speech at the local level. And you sent 2 officers to do it. The other concerning part is this lady decided to talk about it. If you guys want the ultimate black pill, this is maybe one of them, which is that, remember, the whole point of the original movement into this government was to dismantle government waste and fraud and abuse and save money and do the things like less government that everybody kind of hoped a conservative organization would do. Again, conservatives, you are the minority in the Republican Party. You are the rhinos. You're Republican in name only because you're actually a conservative. Some of you are baking cheeseburger nationalists. You want to be left the hell alone, be able to do your own thing, and you want the dominant culture in America to survive. Trump administration promised you something. It was called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. They brought in the richest man in the world, an efficiency guy, someone who took 3/4 of the staff of Twitter, got rid of them, and the website never crashed, and they keep doing the thing they're doing. This is from Politico. It's worth a read all the way through, but I'll do a quick summary of it. The Trump administration has conceded that the DOGE team may have misused Social Security data. Some DOGE personnel had more access to data than previously acknowledged, according to a court filing. This is coming from Politico, so obviously leaning a little bit to the left, if not a lot. 2 members of Elon Musk's DOGE team are working at the Social Security Administration. We're secretly in touch with an advocacy group seeking to overturn election results in certain states. Now, we can't have that. We can't have the elections actually be safe, secure, or we check into those things. That would be totally unacceptable. One of them signed an agreement that may have involved using Social Security data to match state voter rolls. The Justice Department revealed that's because our Justice Department is going after DOGE employees that were trying to secure elections. Whether they were doing it properly or not, I thought the entirety of this thing was to use the damn chainsaw to come through and find what the truth was. Where's our money going? Why is it going there? Did someone steal our freaking elections? And the answer to it is DOJ, under Pam Bondi, this DOJ, our DOJ, the brilliant leadership of Donald Trump, or whatever other bullshit they want to sling at you. Those people, yeah, they're going to prosecute people that worked in the government that were trying to do what their mission was in spirit, and maybe they didn't have it done correctly. If it was in good faith, I have no otherwise to say it, that shouldn't be an issue. Elizabeth Shapiro, a top Justice Department official, said the Social Security Administration referred both DOGE employees for potential violations of the Hatch Act. I'm not even sure if I've ever seen a Hatch Act violation prosecuted, which bars federal government employees from using their official positions for political purposes. Very simply speaking, Hatch Act is always told to you. It's a limit on your association and your limit of speech and politics while you're in a government job. And again, I don't know if they can even defend it under the First Amendment, but there's always this question of what you're doing. Is it a violation of the Hatch Act? The previous Biden administration had no problem with people taking a knee for BLM, and you had FBI agents promoted repeatedly who took that knee and made quote-unquote not official statements while wearing FBI stuff, which should be a Hatch Act violation, because BLM is clearly a left-leaning, very specific type of politics. One would think. Or you can act like we should go after the DOGE guys. Again, I'm not trying to black pill people per se. Black pill means lose all hope. What I'm saying is it's quite clear to me that the system is what it does. And what the system does is it punishes and it aggressively pursues people who have decided to say, I think the system should be what it aspires to be and not what it currently is. I'm interested in diseases and root causes, not in like some bullshit symptoms. And I don't want to just do Fox News hits. This is a Fox News administration. That's how they do it. You guys are not surprised by that. And so we're going to continue to get scary things just like that. All right, that's going to be today's program. I'm going to go out and talk to some neat people at SHOT Show. I hope you guys will share the show with someone you love. Maybe share it with someone who doesn't know what's going on in the world. You can follow us over on Kyle Seraphin Show. You can send that over for this week. That's probably going to be the best way to get the show, but we'll take your views wherever you do it. If you want to support the program financially, if you want to get into our locals community and talk to like-minded individuals, KyleSeraphin.com. So KyleSeraphinShow.com or KyleSeraphin.com. Good ways to connect with us here. Either way, like the show. Make sure you're subscribe to the channel, whether it be on Rumble or whether it be on YouTube. If you're watching on X, join us on a monetized platform. The X views give us nothing. They're actually completely uncountable because I have no idea what a view on X even constitutes, so we can't monetize that. Not that it matters to you. If that's where you're watching, I appreciate you guys. You guys are bonus watchers. But if we're trying to keep track of who's around and who's doing what, just for the purposes of the financial end of this podcast, which is what it does. This is what it supports us. It takes time. It's obviously a full-time resource. If you guys want to be part of that, join us on one of the places where you can. I do have a palate cleanse for you. I'm not going to send you off unbidden. And this comes, actually, amusingly enough, from a conversation that I had with a Brit yesterday. Exactly this conversation. He mentioned public schools, which are private schools in the UK. So here's a fun little thing. Brits making fun of words that Americans made up. maybe we're not so bad after all here.
America, I think they're so special renaming things for no reason.
Yeah, like pavement. No, we're going to call it sidewalk, mate. Oh, look at us, we're so clever.
Yeah. Actually, that does make more sense than pavement, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, what is a pavement?
I don't know. You literally walk on the side of the road. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. They're still stupid, though.
Yeah, they are. Oh, we're going to call chips fries.
Yeah, idiots. Technically, you do fry them, though.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. You do, didn't you?
It does feel like they swooped in later, cleaned things up and made everything a bit simpler, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's because they're simpler.
1-0.
And what's wrong with a chemist?
Yeah, what is wrong with a chemist? Oh, no, it's got to be a drugstore.
That is where they keep the drugs, though.
That is where they keep the drugs. I was just thinking that as well. Oh, okay, I got one. Public school.
What do they call it?
Private school.
Oh my God, idiots. Why would a public school be called private school?
No, they are private schools. We just call it public school.
Why would we do that?
We should just talk about something else.
Anyway, check us out on Spotify, KyleSeraphinShow.com. I appreciate all you guys watching. Yeah, we do have some words that are slightly better. They're actually correct on aluminum, though. It is aluminium, I think. Anyway, the Brits are fun here, and we get to see a lot of international folks. All right, catch you guys on the flip side over on Thursday. Make sure you support the sponsor. Link in the show description, and have a fantastic middle of your week.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.